Okay, there we go. Super. Okay, so we put in the URL of where we were when we dropped in. It's, for some reason, I don't know why, but I was thinking like when I clicked that footer that I would have been into this create an issue with the specification already populated and the related URL filled in.
Right, and I think
Dreamy.
that is work. Yeah, right. I think that tying everything together work is on the horizon somewhere.
Yep.
Um,
Related artifact is a drop down.
yep.
And
I don't think. Is there a specific related artifact you're thinking of? Because I don't think this one, Karen,
this one
blue
is not
button.
set up. So when you set up
Yep.
your project in JIRA, you can specify artifacts and pages, and this one doesn't have anything. So I would say this is an instance where you just leave this blank because they
Yep.
have not
Yep.
identified artifacts, and they have they've given you this very simple thing where you can either say it's not applicable. There's many different pages, or it relates to the profiles.
Sure.
So I'm going to go with leaving that blank as well.
Sure.
Related thing, I'm going to call this introduction. That helps them find where they were.
Yep.
And then here's where, this is where, like in the old spreadsheet, there was this formal way of indicating this is what the IG says right now, and this is what I'm proposing it should say. So there's no structure in this box that they present that says description. So if I wanted to say sentence says this is the introduction, and I want it to say, should say, this is the introduction. There's no easy way to help, to help people know how to make an effective comment.
Right. So I'm going to drop in. Is there a chat on
Yes,
this?
in this,
There we go.
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to drop that in there, and that's the documentation for submitting these. But you're actually right on point per the architecture of this by just describing that exact thing in the description field.
Yeah, so I have to teach people the old habits to do in this new box, because otherwise, as the recipient, like if you don't get much context, that is, this what it says right now, context, a lot of times you're having to search to figure out what was this person trying to say to me and where are they pointing out the change. And without this is what the guide says. This thing gives you exact coordinates because you can search on that exact piece of text and it will bring you where you need to go. So I might just come up with a few little tips for making good comments that utilize the old things that we learned from the spreadsheet of the olden days to help people understand the most effective way to populate this description box.
Sure, and that makes sense. And the description box also supports lists and tables, so that can be very helpful depending on how many different levels you're trying to explain there.
Yep, yep. Yeah, and you can add an attachment. That's super. And then request in person. What do you do with an @ You just @ yourself?
So the request in person is to allow a submitter to request that they be present when a submitted issue is discussed. So
yes.
Yeah, so you can put yourself, or
What are you supposed to type? Yes. No?
No, it's looking for actual users here.
Okay. But you could put, like, if I knew that this was not only important to me, but that Gay Dolan would care about this as well,
Exactly.
then I can put her on there
Yep. And the fields that are user fields in JIRA, as noted by that little icon in the bottom right, they don't need an @ symbol. So you can
Oh,
actually
okay.
just type and it'll, yep.
Great. And I think it's crazy that it makes you try and figure out what work group.
Yes. I think you're not totally alone in that feeling. Um,
I mean, the good news is it always says if you're working on here, the work group that's responsible is always reported in the footer right here. So if you weren't sure, you can go look here in the footer, HL7 Financial Management, and that's how you know what you're supposed to pick. But
Yep. And it's designed along the way if the interest should change between the initial assigning work group and work group down the road, it can be changed as well.
yeah, which brings me to, we'll get through this, and it brings me to the whole idea of how do you have any visibility to what has changed over time. When I'm trying to look at these tickets, my biggest thing is I'm trying to get to a stable list where I can see, like in my ballots, comment number 27 remains comment number 27 forever. And what's in the description boxes, in those purple areas that are first filled in, this is what the problem is, this is what I propose, this is what the issue, that never changes. You always see the starting state. And I feel like when I go into JIRA now, I'm in some loosey-goosey land where I'm like, I'm looking at this ticket number. I have no idea what was in that description box in the
Yep, if
beginning.
it's
Like
current or if it, yep. So
somebody just
that's
typed over
available.
top of something else, how do you see that?
Sure. Yep. So that's available on the actual issue. So let's go ahead and create this one.
Should I create it? I feel bad just putting junk in here. Are we going to be able to, we'll get the number and we'll be able to delete it back out?
Oh, right. So yeah, if this is just a test, yeah, let's not create it. And we'll
We'll
just
just do
navigate back.
cancel.
Yep, just cancel, and we'll navigate
Okay.
back to just the issues on that last screen there. Yep. So if you scroll down from here, just on the actual issue body itself on the right side, yeah, on the main part.
Oh, in the main part, yep.
Yep. And then you see at the bottom section there, you have all comments, history, activities, and transitions. The history, activities, and transitions is what you're going to be looking for, and they're broken apart depending on what action you're looking to check out. So if you click on history first, you'll see an example here. So Rob created the issue on 5/26. There was an admin function that took place. Melva came in, Rob came in, Lloyd came in. And that's kind of gives you an example of an ongoing history change. Now, if you go to activity, the next tab over, we see that there was, if you scroll down just a little bit, it's essentially the same thing, except for this will include comments and other functions that are outside of the workflow. And then if you go to transitions, that's the most simplified version, and that's just showing what transitions were actually made. So originally, Rob created it, and then Melva submitted to triage, and then Rob triaged back to triage for some note on top of that. So that history tab.
What's the state model for the transitions? Is that in that JIRA link?
Yep, it's on that link I just sent there. But the submitted is the initial status for new feedback, and it indicates that the item needs to be reviewed and then assigned to the right work group and then categorized. Yep, and it's in a table if you keep going down, right, just a little bit more. Yeah, right there in that table right below the icon there.
Table below. Oh, okay. I was just looking at this state model, like this picture kind of says it all to me, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that history tab is probably going to be most useful because it will tell you if a field has changed and what what the previous value was. It gives you that little side arrows, right? So that original value and then the new value. So it looks like nothing has actually changed for fields. Status has changed. Grouping became C. So okay, so that's a good example. Grouping was originally blank. If you look at Rob's, yep, it was originally blank, and now it's C.
Mm-hmm.
So
and this says the workflow field.
Yeah, Lloyd made an administrative change to the workflow. So we went from he's developing on the back end, so it went from HL7 spec. Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's say I'm interested in looking at what's going on with the Karen Blue Button ballot comments, like a not just comment by comment kind of view, but I want to look at all of the ballot comments for Karen Blue Button. How do I see things and deal with them in more of a list kind of way?
Sure, and that's a fantastic question and a very common thing that people working on this will need. So if you look at the top right, there's two different ways to get to what we're going to use is JQL to search over issues and projects. But at the very top right, just down where it says view all issues and filters, that's one way to get there. And the other way is if at the top left under the issues drop down in the main header bar there, issues, just up in the actual blue bar itself. If you select that, and then the first one should be search, or second, search for issues. Either one will work, but since we're here, we'll just select that one.
How do I set my context to be in the Karen Blue Button IG?
And we'll see that in just 1 second.
Oh, okay. Because I'm always feeling like I'm like too high up. I'm at the whole population of all of the fire project issues, and that's not the context that I want to be in.
Yep, but that is accurate. You are seeing absolutely everything displayed to your eyes. So we'll select a search for issues. And then in here, we'll kind of drill down the JQL to get as specific as we need it to be. So right now, by default, you're seeing this search bar across the top, and that's looking for JQL syntax. In this case, let's select the basic on the top right there at the end of the search bar, and that'll give us a little bit, that'll give us some drop downs and fields and stuff. So starting from the left side where project is selected.
How do you get back to that? Go back to advanced, and then it's looking for JQL, and go back to basic, and it's using these easier.
Yep, and it is still JQL. Once we create a search, we can select advanced, and you'll be able to see an example of what that looks like.
Okay.
But if we select project, yep, on the left, and then fire, you said you wanted to see the comments?
Karen Blue Button is the IG, and I'm looking for just the comments that are associated with a particular ballot.
Okay. So let's do, let's select the top 3 projects here. So we'll select fire specification feedback, that first one, and then we'll select the 2 ballot ones below that. So ballot definition and ballot submission. All right, so now it's kind of live updating as we go. The next thing that we want is issue type to be comment. So if you select more, or I'm sorry, actually it's already there. So the next field over, next to there where it says type, yep, we'll select that. And that's going to be comment. It's about 3 up from the bottom currently.
But they could have made change requests or questions.
Absolutely, yep. So would you like to just see the comments against this, or did you want to see all content against Karen?
Everything that was in the ballot. And by comments, I mean, by comments, I don't mean just comments. I mean like every row, every issue that was submitted that is a part of the ballot.
Okay, so let's keep it very general then. And the next thing we'll need to do is in that contains text search field on the 3 over.
So you wouldn't say ballot submission.
You could, but let's start most general, and then we can kind of drill it down from there.
Okay.
So, yep, if you go over to the right, 2 more fields to contains text. Yep, and we'll just search for Karen right here.
Oh dear, I'm not picking the project.
So the very first thing that we selected on the left-hand side, we did select the projects. So, and I'm guessing you're saying you're selecting the project in the spec, right?
I mean, I should say specification. Yeah. So I know by project is there's only 3 projects like fire, CDA, and something else. So it's in the
That's
fire
in JIRA.
project from a JIRA
Yep.
world order. And then I'm only interested in, I want to go to the level that it's only that specification. Remember, we filled in the specification and we had to go search and find Karen BB.
Yep.
I only want stuff associated with that specification.
Right. So let's search here real quick, and let's see what we get, because this will search first the summary, and that should nope, I'm sorry, I'm not in that search bar. So we'll just exit out of that. Yep. And search the blue button on the right of that. We'll just, yep, commit this search. Okay. So now we can see that we have some change request. It looks like a technical correction that
But where did it search? In this word summary?
Yes.
But like, what if somebody's making a comment on the Karen spec, but in the summary they don't mention the word Karen?
So then it's still going to be based on a balloted item that has Karen somewhere in the summary. So what we'll do is if you select, let's go to only balloted items. So on the project top left, instead of having fire spec and all of those selected, let's do only the ballot submission. So unselect, yep, those first 2, and let's search here. Using the blue button at the top right there where it says search of that search. Yep.
Oh, so this is helping me build the parameters in the JQL, and then when I press search, it actually executes it.
Exactly. Okay, so we can see there's no ballot submissions for Karen. So now let's change the project from ballot submission.
That doesn't make any sense, right? Because they just went through ballot and they have,
Yep. And if you select advanced here as well, you can see that's what it's actually committing. So yep, these drop downs are helping you build out the JQL, and that search function is actually committing the search. So yep, under ballot submissions, let's go ahead and deselect that, and then select ballot definition. And let's search for Karen on this. Okay, so there's no ballot submissions and there's no ballot definition for Karen. So all of these items that we're seeing are only from the fire specification project in JIRA. That tells us that there are things submitted, but they are not associated with any kind of votes or ballot definition items. So let's go back to the fire specification feedback project and only select that one. Let's deselect the definition. Okay, and let's search here. I always like to search whenever I change something, just because I don't trust the live search, to be honest. Okay, so let's select that first, there is no mention of Karen, that first summary there. And we can get into it and we'll be able to see a little bit better. Okay. So this Thompson Kun has submitted this, and he says that there's no mention of Karen, what it is, and what its role in the IG is, add discussion. And we can see that this was voted on affirmative by Thomas Kun, right? And so this is, so to your original question.
See the vote?
Under issue links, just to the left of your mouse there. Yep, and so this is, to your original question, how you can see what is related to what under this issue links, because here you will see the positive and negative votes, you will see the comments, you will see all those issue types. So this is a pretty, there's not much going on with this particular thing so far. So let's go back one to the JQL query that we had.
Like this button?
Yep. Let's go back one step. So these look all unassigned. If we scroll down just a bit, maybe get to it. Let's select one of the triaged or resolved. The resolved change. Yep, that one right there. Let's select that.
Does it matter whether I click there or click there? It takes me to the same place, right?
Same place. Yep. Okay, so now here we can see
these are all crossed out.
They're all resolved. They hit a resolution status of resolved or a final state.
Okay.
So if you scroll up just a little bit. Okay, so Paul Knapp reported this, and the summary at very top text says replace the Karen UCUM for consistency across fire. So then if we scroll down to that very bottom history, we can see that changes were made. Melva came in and interacted with it. We can see that Frank McKinney, he marked it as a duplicate, or I'm sorry, he linked it to the fire 25659. We can also see that he prioritized it as highest, made some changes, and so forth. And so this is giving us that picture of what has happened, right? And then if we scroll back up to the links, we can see where these actually took place. So let's select one of the fire relates to. Yeah, like that top one. Let's select that one, and we'll see how it links back to this 26517. Okay, so if we scroll down just a little bit more, and under the comments section instead of history, okay, so all he's done is made a simple link. He says, this comment's concern was discussed on the context of the one we just navigated from. So we're able to kind of see how the network of these projects links together here. Now, this was part of a block vote. We can see that in the grouping. We can also see that it relates to terminology, that the work group is pharmacy, all the standard stuff.
Somebody said it's persuasive with mod, and that got voted on by the work group on April 13th.
Yep.
And then it was resolved. This would be like applying the change on April 6th. Is that what, the column that I have where it says you eventually have to say, I did it. Is
right.
That what this?
Yep, and that likely they've stepped back in time there, right, because it's a previous date, but that is correct. It was resolved when it hit the resolution of persuasive with mod. That took place on 4/6.
So they resolved it and then voted. But how do you know that what does resolved actually mean?
Yeah, so if we go back to that link I sent you originally, it will go over, I believe it's at, I'm looking through here. Right, so at the bottom, towards the bottom, there's a table with the resolutions and what they're defined as. Yep, right there. So persuasive with mod is that it'll be made to the specification that addresses the issue identified, but it's noticeably different. So that is the marker. That resolution field is your final say as, yep, that's where it landed, it'll be handled.
So where would one mark that I did it? Like, it's from a balloting point of view, you're saying the comment is resolved. We've marked it as persuasive with mod, and we voted on it. but where do you say it's been changed? Like that step of, okay, somebody says I'm going to do something different. That was a persuasive with Mod. We're all done voting. Now Jane has to go open up the IG and make that change. Where do you
Right.
record that?
Right. So if you look at the top center of the issue we're on currently, you see the two options. Yep, change applied and reopened, and that's where you're stating that exactly what you just asked, where your official change has been applied. And if you select on the right over by that blue little icon that says resolved change ellipsis, just yep, right underneath your mouse there, that view workflow. If you select that just to the right. This may be helpful and it may not be.
Click it.
I can't remember. Yeah, yep. Go ahead and select it, please. Right, less than helpful. Okay, so if we go back to the, just close out of this and go back to that link that I sent originally. Yep, and then back to that diagram of the feedback issue state machine. Right there. So right now we're at that centered or yellow box, the resolved change required. And then obviously it has to be applied. And then another step happens finally when it actually becomes published and the change is affected in the specification.
So something that's applied looks like.
We can go back to it. We can go back to our search real quick.
Go back to our
and
search.
I'm honestly. Yep, just back one page. Yep, and maybe two. Yeah, I think one more. So if you go to status, yep, that next one over, and then go to published, yep, or applied, yep. We can see, if we select one of those, we can see an example of what we'll get there. So this to answer the main part of your question here, Lisa, this JQL, what we're doing, this searching at the top and stuff, this is huge. It's very, very important. This is one of the main parts. On that link that I sent you at the very top of that Confluence page, and I would recommend this to anybody who is going to be using this, those tutorials on the top right, very useful, and they go over step by step how to do these exact things. So, but yeah, the JQL is critical. That's a huge part in being able to navigate around JIRA.
Is one of these a JQL tutorial or syntax stuff, or you just learn syntax by bouncing back and forth between basic and advanced and figuring out how you write JQL?
Well, both of those. But I have created how to search by JQL using the advanced and basic tutorial. If you go to at the very top left in that sidebar, HL7 documentation help. Yep. And on the how to webinars tab, 4 over or 3 over. And then searching JIRA issues under JIRA. This will give you, this is very basic, it's kind of exactly what we went over today, but it's just, yeah, exactly that. Where can I search, what is JQL, and then how to use filters and subscriptions against JQL.
Someone mentioned that there's some sort of way of saving, like if you get a good thing worked out, a good filter, I guess you would call this, or a good search, that you can save it, and then you can even share these syntax lines with other people.
Yep, exactly. So if you see the save as just up and to the left from that search bar. Yep, so we can save as, and this is considered a filter, and so this will just be a personal filter at this point, so you can name it whatever you think is. Yep, Karen Ballot. And save. And it'll show on our left-hand side there And now in order to subscribe to this, say you want to be notified every time one gets applied or enters the status applied, at the details, blue link at the very top center next to that black star, if you select that, and then new subscription at the bottom of that list. And then from here, it gives you some choices. When do you want to be notified that there's something in here? You can say daily, once a week, or whatever. And then by default, you're probably going to want that unselected, that last email. And then what that will do is only give you new results. Yep, so now every day at 1 a.m., if there is a new issue that will be returned by this filter, JQL, you'll get an email.
So what if I wanted to answer the opposite question, and that is, these two have been applied, but how many need to be applied?
So that would be, you're gonna need to search for the resolved TAC change required status. Yep, so instead of applied at the third, we'll unselect that and we'll do that blue, yep, resolve change required. And search on the top right there for that. Yep, so there's 17 that still need to make their way towards published.
And then I would look at this and I would say, okay, so that was accomplished by that thing. And if I want to turn that into a filter.
And now that, so you just saved over top of your previous filter that you created. That ellipsis next to save will allow you to save as.
Save as. Okay, save as. So this, I'm going to fix this then. I'm going to go Karen, blue button, ballot, issues to be applied. Which is the right way to think about that is resolved, change needed. Is that how they said it?
Change needed. Change required. Change required.
Change required. So you really have to know that state model to know how to get the right things.
Very much so. Yep.
And then if I go back,
keeping in mind that your other filter
got messed up.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and fix this right here. So I'm going to do this. As soon as you click on it, it's applied. You don't have to do search, or you click on it, it comes up here, and then you say search.
It does a live search, but like I said, I'm a skeptical person, so I always search manually on top of it. Because there are a few exceptions where it just times out or something, so I always like to come with the actual search.
Now I fixed what I had previously called the issues that need to be applied. So now I do save, and now I fix that. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, great. And then this is getting to understand all of the possible available fields.
Right. Yeah. So.
And you can add more to the report by checking extra boxes.
Exactly. Yep. Now when I was looking around, when I first saw your email and then started looking at this, addressing some of what you had asked, you said the word reports. Now, I want to show you something that can be a little misleading, and definitely, it's good to share with people who are just starting this so they're not misled into that. But to confirm, we are at the right place here with this search function, the JQL, to navigate everything we need to. If you go back, let's select, or actually you can just select one of these issues, just any one of either of those issues. And on the left-hand side, go ahead and actually select it. Maybe it's...
I'm clicking on the number. I'm clicking on the words. Nothing's happening.
Okay, let's refresh the page here real quick. I don't know if that save as function. Okay. I'm not sure what
Applied.
happened there.
This looks like maybe it was just slow. It looks like here's one of those applied things.
Okay, sure. Now on the left-hand side, are you seeing a
This
sidebar
is
there?
weird because this is not the spec that we were in. We were in Karen Blue Button, weren't we?
Right. So let's select projects from the top in the very top thing, and then let's do fire specification feedback. Okay, yeah, something timed out there. Okay. Now on the left-hand side, so on the very left-hand bar, you have those three options. You have summary, issues, and reports. Reports is not what you want to be concerned with by and large. There are a few exceptions to that, but that is not where you want to be going. You want to be using that at the very top right, the view all issues and filters, or the issues drop down where it says search for issues at the very top. Yep, right there.
And what was the other thing where you said view all issues and filters? Yeah,
at the top right, that little link.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, and that'll take you to JQL as well.
I'm missing in my mind if the word project means all fire specifications.
There's
word
levels.
Specification is I'm trying to is there something I can pick?
Right. So what's happening
in the context of a specification?
Only via the JQL. So, and that's because of a syntactical thing in HL7, right? So in HL7 we have projects like the Karen, blue button, the PSS creation project, whatever. But in JIRA, it's recognizing like that project's word is recognized by Atlassian software as just being a divider at the highest level. So in JIRA, there's a lot of other things going on besides just commenting and ballot work on specifications. There's also user requests, and there's also daily tasks for website updates and all kinds of other things. So that's that JIRA project grouper. And there is that 2 levels of project syntax going on, and I understand totally why it's confusing, but
it seems like I'm missing something. Like if I'm going to click this to say fire specification feedback, the next thing I want to click is have a list of all the different specifications. I want to pick that specification. What's the JIRA JQL term where I would go and this thing equals Karen Blue Button IG?
Sure. So under More, on the right next to the blue search button, and if we go to, I think it's related, if you start typing related, related, no, I'm sorry. What's
specification was what when we were filling out a comment, it was the field called specification that we.
And if you see that little right red, yep, and it is not part of fire spec feedback, and that's because those work against and in unison with ballot def and ballot submission. So let's change on the very first project selection. Yep, let's add ballot definition and ballot submission.
What's the difference?
And so ballot, that's a very good question. Ballot definition it houses the actual defining elements per ballot cycle, and ballot submission are all the elements against those balloted items.
Okay, so just check both of those all the time. You would never do
I
one or the
I
other by
typically
itself. Just check them both.
I typically check them both and then
Okay.
become more specific by whatever I'm searching for. But there are definitely cases where you would want just one or the other.
Okay.
But typically, like what we're doing right now will be more general. And then more, just next left of that search bar, let's do specification.
Does it matter whether?
Let's not select the fire spec feedback project. Let's deselect that. One up from there.
Oh,
Yep.
that's something else. That's
Yeah, that's resolution. Yep.
deselect this.
Yep. And now let's do more one more time, and then specification. Okay, let me get over here. And it may this may be actually one of those, searching for a spec may be just on ballot's definition. Let me see here. Search for issues.
Or maybe just ballot submission. I want comment issues that are submitted against a particular ballot. So let's try that. Ballot submission.
And sorry, this is trial and error here. I'm not super familiar with.
Can't pick it.
Ballot submissions.
What caused this to be here, Josh? Did I pick something that caused a type or something, resolution unresolved?
No, that is a default basic search that JIRA adds in there.
Okay.
So yeah, typically I just X that out. Yeah, close it out. Specification. Okay. Ballot submission and specification. I think we have to select. Yes, okay. So what it's going to make you do, and this is, I forgot about this. This is a tricky part of JQL. So let's select ballot submission. Yep, you've got that. And then type, instead of all, let's select the specific ballot submission type. And the reason that it makes you do this is because issue types are like a secondary way to divide things in JIRA, and it will not let you return an issue type that doesn't have a field, in this case, specification associated with it. So ballot vote does not have that field, or actually ballot vote may, but like the JIRA user request, right? Because we're working in JIRA 10,000 foot view world. So it wants you to be very specific as to what you're actually looking for. So now with ballot submissions both selected, let's try more one more time, and then add in specification, and now we can select it, and now it'll give you that search. So, and it under specification on the left, yep, under all, it'll have a little search that'll drop down, and here we can select Karen.
I could spell it.
Yep, blue button.
Look at that. Yep.
And then update just underneath that. And this is a good example of some fields are cascading, and some have multiple levels of cascading ability. So yeah, exactly. I always do the search twice.
So this would be all of
everything,
the ballot comments, all of the ballot issues for the Karen blue button.
Exactly.
Regardless of what status they're in.
Regardless.
Okay, so that puppy should be saved. And once you get this, then it would be really similar if you just drop some other specification in.
Exactly. Yep.
So this is Karen blue button, all ballot issues.
And thanks for being patient as we work through that. I haven't
No, that's
searched for
awesome.
ballot
That's
submissions in a
awesome.
minute, so.
Yeah, but sometimes when you don't know people's workflows, you don't know what to teach because you don't, like, to me, that I kept asking, I'm like, but how do I get to my spec? But how do I get, because different people like look at the data in different ways. So
Exactly. Yep.
perfect. All right. I think this is a mindful. So let us work with this and get good at the amount that you have showed us. And we'll, I think those are the basics that we really need to figure it out. Now, when people are voting, like in the olden days, you never saw anything until the date passed and everyone's votes were processed, and then the comments would appear. Because somebody runs some amalgamate the spreadsheets voodoo, and you get the presto one big spreadsheet with all the comments in it, and then that gets issued out to the community. It seems like with this process, if people start making comments in JIRA on August 14th when the ballot opens, you could actually see what comments others are making as the days progress through the ballot cycle.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yep.
That's an improvement
Absolutely.
over what we had before.
Absolutely. Yep. It's a much more inclusive, open way to comment against things because you can see you can then gauge the way things are going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. And so I need to get familiar with all of the possible comments. And the best way to be familiar with these is just by adding a comment, because when you add a comment, you really are exposed to a majority of these fields.
Yep.
And does that box where we typed in the description of our issue, does that change over time? Like, is that the workflow that people who are in the work group and they're looking at these issues, and we've talked about it 2, 3, 4 different times, do they just keep writing over top of that description box, so the description box just keeps changing?
Right. So it is versioned there, right? In that it has a historical account. So if I don't want to misspeak here because I
Mm-hmm.
think there's yes and no. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure what fields the yes applies to and what fields the no applies to. Because in some cases, it should only be done via a workflow action against it rather than just going into edit. There's a workflow transition that has post function edits that take place, and they link out to the other projects and they update things in the database and stuff like that. So I I honestly don't know if description is one of those or not, and it should be in the documentation, at least in the link that I sent you, and the following or subsequent pages there.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that, I would say yes, because by and large, I think it's yes, but I was working with Kathleen Connor on one, and she actually, she needed to transition it with a workflow button to accomplish what she needed to do.
The field allows formatting, including lists and tables, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't really say if the description field is one of those ones that would require some sort of workflow to update it, or if you just, yeah, I don't know. We'll watch. I'll watch. Michelle Miller is one of the best at using JIRA. I think she's really good at it, and so we'll just go to we'll go to a Thursday night patient care call and watch Michelle do her thing, and get that final question answered there.
Sure, sure. And another hint towards the process may be that first child page below the page you're currently on, the managing specification feedback on the left-hand side. Yeah, that one has some
Edit
editable
tips.
options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. Great. Great. All right, Josh, thank you so much. I really appreciate a whole hour of your time to be training on this. I super, super appreciate it. And I
Yeah,
will
you're welcome.
pass the knowledge on. Lots of people are trying to figure out how to do this effectively using JIRA. So we'll pass it on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
And
thank you,
keep us
Josh.
in mind.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, you're very welcome.
All right, take care.
All right, thanks. Bye.
I'm going to stop our recording.